Before we begin, I would like to advertise my books, Above Heaven and Dance of Frozen Death. If you like my takes on storytelling, please consider giving them a read. Links in the description. Now, on with the video.
お前に敵などいない。誰にも敵などいないんだ。
Greetings, fellow mortals. I was aware of Vinland Saga for a long time. When the anime first came out, I wanted to watch it, but most of my free time was spent with my then girlfriend, now wife. She wanted to watch it too eventually with me, but wasn't in the mood at the time. It was a difficult time and she didn't want to watch a show full of people dying. So I put it on my reserve list. I knew that I would watch it and like it eventually. I had a good feeling about the show, and plenty of people who have similar tastes to me loved it as well. Unfortunately, I forgot about it as time went on. When season 2 started releasing, I knew that I had to get into it. Fortunately, my wife is in a good enough mood this time to watch something with so much death and suffering, because I don't have a lot of free time to watch things on my own. There's too much work to do. While I loved the first season, my wife didn't particularly like the pacing or the way the story was going. With a title like Vinland Saga, she expected a more action-packed story, something like the regular shonen anime. Instead, it was a character study and a political drama. She liked it, but her expectations were far different than what she actually got. As for me, I adored every single thing about it.
Hello? I love you.
Small spoilers for the first few episodes and chapters, but nothing past that until I give you a real spoiler warning, alright? Vinland Saga follows Thorfinn, son of Thors. He's a young boy living in Iceland. For the most part, life is peaceful for him. He dreams of sailing and becoming a strong warrior. At the same time, he's confused why his father is so opposed to violence when battle is ingrained into almost every aspect of Norse life and culture. Unfortunately, Thor's pacifistic and peaceful lifestyle is shattered when his old brothers-in-arms arrive recruiting him to go to war. With his village threatened, Thor accepts the summons. He, Leif Erikson, and a group of young men travel to meet the Viking army. To their shock, Thorfinn stowed away on their boat. Fortunately, Thor secretly plans to send the young men and Leif back to Iceland anyway. He will go to war alone. His plans are unfortunately shattered when an old brother-in-arms, Floki, hires a band of pirates led by Askeladd to assassinate Thor. While caught up in the ambush, Thor shows unbelievable skill, speed, and strength. He beats half of the pirates by himself, including Askeladd and the second in command. Nevertheless, Thor is outnumbered and his young child is there. To save Thorfinn's life, Thor allows his enemies to kill him if they spare the people from his village. Filled with guilt and rage, Thorfinn swears vengeance on his father's killer. He decides to follow Askeladd, growing stronger and older during his many attempts to kill Askeladd in a fair duel. Obsessed with his goal, Thorfinn will follow his new leader into hell itself in order to get a chance to personally slay the man who took his father from him. From there, the circumstances spiral out of control as the pirates find themselves in worse trouble due to Askeladd's decisions. From the outside, the premise doesn't sound like anything groundbreaking. It's Hamlet, but with Vikings. Revenge stories aren't anything new. I've made 2 videos this year alone on revenge stories. The Glory and John Wick 4 handle the circumstances very differently though. The morality in The Glory is pretty much black and white. The villains are irredeemably evil, and Moon Dong-un has to stop them because they will hurt people again. John Wick is a film about enjoying the choreography and fighting without chastising the audience. Vinland Saga is very different from that. It doesn't chastise the people watching or reading it. Instead, it shows how the obsession for revenge leaves people empty husks and leads to immeasurable pain in its wake. Hating and killing others just leads to more hating and killing. It's never demonstrated as flashy or fun. Instead, it points out the misery involved with real-life warfare.
War. War never changes.
I think that might be the actual reason that my wife doesn't like it. She expected the usual shonen formula where the combat is supposed to leave you impressed, where you get a dopamine response because of how fun it was. Vinland Saga is not like that at all. If there's combat or even if a sword is drawn, you're probably going to feel anxious. People are going to get hurt and die, usually innocent people or characters that you've grown to care about. Even Thorfinn's duels end in a way that feels less than satisfactory. The only real exception was when Thors defeated armed men with his bare hands. Even then, it ended sadly, and this is obviously all by design. Everything about Vinland Saga shows the horrors of war, slavery, and Norse philosophy as a whole. I think the difficult aspect about Vinland Saga is how it advertises itself. It appears as a regular action show from the outside, but is actually a story of philosophy and character evolution. Nothing demonstrates this more than the fact that the manga shifted from weekly shonen, which is marketed to young boys, to monthly afternoon, which is marketed to young men. To gain attention and popularity, the creator Makoto Yukimura did kind of a bait and switch. It's a brilliant strategy that could only go one of two ways. Either you're disappointed like my wife, or you're enamored like me.
That's beautiful, man.
So the important thing to know about Vinland Saga is that it's closer to Game of Thrones compared to anything else, with less nudity and coitus. In fact, the fan service is kept minimal, but that might be because there aren't many female characters to begin with. In Season 1, the only significant female characters are Thorfinn's mother and sister, who are no longer featured after the first few episodes. In Season 2, there is a very important female character that I won't spoil, but you will love her. But even then, it feels kind of like a sausage fest all the way through. Of course, that complaint is fixed once you get past where Season 2 will end off and main female characters are introduced, and they are great. I love them. I especially love how one of them fights. It's perfect. In fact, I'm on chapter 136 right now, and I love the parallelism in Thorfinn's character study, because of course I had to read ahead after the season ended. I couldn't stop myself. I can't wait any longer. It replaced my regular nightly reading. I'd feel guilty if the manga wasn't so good.
Should the day ever come that we are not together, you will continue to shine like gold in my memories.
What I think is most amazing is how the story keeps improving no matter what. It constantly builds. Characters change and evolve. Convictions are tested. Events which previously occurred are constantly built upon. Nothing is forgotten or dismissed. Everyone is important. And I do grow to love the people involved in this tale, from Thorfinn to even Askeladd, who is technically the main antagonist of the series. Like I said, no spoilers, but I will say that he is a character who I have extremely mixed feelings. He is a terrible person who has done unforgivable things, but he is so charismatic and smart. Despite everything, I actually ended up liking him at least a little bit. It's amazing. It's Better Call Saul levels of writing. After all, Vinland Saga never painted what Askeladd did to Thors as a good thing. You're supposed to be sad and angry that Thors is gone. At the same time, this is a narrative which demonstrates how ugly hatred and revenge actually is. If there's any confusion to it, just look at how nasty and ugly Thorfinn looks while he's obsessing over murdering Askeladd. You're never supposed to think that what he is doing is healthy for him. It's part of the reason that he grows up to be so short. A boy isn't meant to sail and constantly train and fight. He's probably malnourished. There are many things to praise about Vinland Saga. I could make videos on each of the characters. I can be impressed by the research and knowledge the creator put into this. I can praise the visuals, especially in the manga, but I think my favorite aspect is that the story is as allegorical as it is an actual narrative. The philosophy and mindset involved are easy to see. It reminds me of my two favorite stories ever. The Alchemist is my favorite book, and The Good Place is my favorite television show. While both of them have strong narratives and characters, the events occurring could easily stand for something else. That is apparently my favorite type of story, because this might very well be the best cautionary tale about revenge that I have ever seen. One line stands out to me more than anything: you have no enemies. When I first heard Thor say that, I openly scoffed. What about thieves and murderers? What of people who are sociopathic? What about people across the world who hate me because of my country and lineage? Are they not my enemies? But that wasn't the point. Until the end of Season 2, I didn't particularly get what the author was going for here. Spoilers from here on out, by the way. When Thorfinn withstood 100 punches from a man who was 3 times larger than him, I was floored. Usually, I would have thought that such a course of action would be stupid, but by the end, I was as awed as the other characters were. After 2 full seasons, I saw what could only be described as the first badass moment where there were no downsides to the situation whatsoever, where the main character stood tall in his convictions, where I had a dopamine release, where I actually felt satisfied with how the conflict concluded. Thorfinn could have easily defeated his foe, but he stood and endured the punishment for the sake of peace. And his words changed my entire perspective on the matter. Thorfinn explained how it wouldn't be much of a peace talk if he started it off with violence. He and the Vikings didn't know each other. They held no grudges against each other. There was no hatred between them, and he wasn't going to sully that. No one comes into the world having enemies. You choose the actions which will make people hate you. You decide to view someone as your enemy instead of as a person. That's what Thor's line means. You're in control of who you hate, even if they did wrong you. And if someone hates you, you can decide whether or not you return that hatred. There are a lot of stories like this, which point out the cycle of hatred and revenge, from Naruto to The Last of Us Part 2, but nothing ingrained it into me like Vinland Saga. No author showed me this perspective without making me feel annoyed. After all, why would you show me amazing violence, which is fun, and then chastise me? That's annoying. I don't like that. It's the Dishonored effect, where they give you a bunch of fun powers, but then tell you that you're a terrible person for using them on enemies. Stop taking away my fun and trying to make me feel like a bad person for enjoying your art. Vinland Saga doesn't do that. Yukimura handled it perfectly because I didn't get a dopamine response to the violence. I didn't grow attached to those scenes. As such, when the characters regret those scenes, I don't feel bad myself. It's a mastercraft of writing which ingrains the lesson into you in an encouraging way. And I do think it helps that the author is such a nice person. He actively thanks fans on Twitter for supporting him. That's the key. He doesn't want his fans to feel bad about themselves. Maybe about the situations in his story, but never about themselves. Instead, he wants to share his mindset on violence and revenge in a way that makes you feel triumphant. I love stories which change my mind on deep philosophical topics. Those are the tales which are perfect to me, and I can proudly state that I think Vinland Saga is close to perfection and is so far one of my favorite anime and manga that I have ever experienced. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and to keep the discussion going. And please consider reading my books, Above Heaven, Dance of Frozen Death, and Vows of Blood and Honor, which will be released in September. I appreciate you. Do not despair.